Good morning, everybody. Happy day in Ohio. For those of us that are in Ohio, if you're joining from someplace else around the country, then welcome to the Ohio Federal Research Network's Opportunity Day. We decided to be very coy about picking the theme for this one. It's space and all things that potentially deal with that in research and development. But we're looking really forward to everybody who is on today. We'll give it just a few more seconds for people that might be joining or having issues maybe getting into the webinar. This is a little bit different for us. In the past, we had always used Zoom, but going forward, we are now using Teams. So for Becky and myself, still getting used to some of the nuances between the various different platforms that are available. All right, Becky, you can go to the next slide. So just very quick, I'm Mark Bartman, the Executive Director for the Ohio Federal Research Network and a consultant to Parallax Advanced Research. The Parallax team that works on these diligently throughout the year is Becky Mesher. She's my program coordinator for the Ohio Federal Research Network. Jess Pacheco, who is the marketing and communications director for Parallax Advanced Research, does an amazing job, as well as John Jackson, who helps support us on the marketing communication side, and Lauren Jones, who has been with Parallax now for several years and is an expert when it comes to helping us make sure that these things go smoothly. You can see who our speakers are today. I think we got a really great lineup. Three very knowledgeable and individuals to talk a little bit about what their agencies are doing as far as space is concerned, and also what higher ed is doing here in the state of Ohio from a space perspective. And then, as always, towards the end of today's webinar, we'll provide a little bit of a review from Brendan Thorson, who works with the Academic Partnership Engagement Experiment, or APEX, which also is managed by Parallax Advanced Research. And he'll go through a number of opportunities for funding that are available out there right now to you that might be interested in going after funding in this particular area. Next slide, please, Becky. Just the agenda here for today. We don't have any specific sort of Q&A time carved out for this because it's such a jam-packed full presentations that we have for today. So if you have a question, a number of options here for you. So please use the chat. You can just put your question into the chat area. And either Becky will get back to you with the answer to that, or for our presenters, if you're able to kind of hang on or pay attention after you get done speaking to see or take a quick look at the chat and see if there's any specific questions in there that are directed towards you, feel free to answer those questions as well. Otherwise, like I said, we'll get back to the individual that asked the question with the answer to it. Next slide, please, Becky. So for those that maybe aren't 100% familiar with the Ohio Federal Research Network, this is just sort of how it's built. So all of the funding for our projects that we fund every 2 years comes from the state of Ohio. It takes into account all those federal partners that you see along the top of the slide there, all the patches, and what those needs are from those individuals. We put out a solicitation every 2 years. The next solicitation, which would be for what we call round 8, will come out in probably the January of 2027 timeframe, so a little less than a year from now, for those of you that are interested in wanting to potentially put a team together to apply for that. The Parallax is strictly a administrative arm of Ohio Federal Research Network. The Technical Review Council and Executive Review Board is the entities that make all the decisions as far as how the money that the state of Ohio appropriates is going to be spent here every 2 years for that. And the slides will be shared. Next slide, please. Actually, they'll be on our website. So as well as the recording for today, and all of our past opportunity days are on our website. So Becky, I'm sure, will can throw the link into the chat for you on that as well if you'd like to look at past opportunity days. Just a real quick program impact. So this is through the end of January. So far, through the first 7 rounds, the state of Ohio has appropriated about $72 million for this program. One of the key goals for this program when it was started in 2015 was to try to figure out ways to bring additional federal follow-on dollars back to the state of Ohio. So far, been, I think, pretty successful in that, with over 400 million has come back to the state of Ohio in federal dollars from the investment that the state makes. The cost share, of course, is that skin in the game that our small business and academic partners are willing to put in to their projects to help be successful. So far, we've had 16 spinouts that have been created. Over 48 projects have been funded, and about a dozen IP has been created so far over those first 7 rounds for that. Although we're just a few months into round 7 right now. You saw the government partners that we had there on the earlier slide. So far to date, 113 industry companies have participated in 25 academic institutions here in the state of Ohio. A couple of rounds ago, about 4 years ago, we started what we call our student experiential engagement to this, where we're actually requiring all of our projects to engage students in a very direct way to make sure that we're trying to keep the best and brightest here in the state of Ohio after they graduate by exposing them to the businesses that participate in these programs, so that they get a really broad sort of experiential education piece out of it by getting to see not only the technology development, but also the business side of things. And you can kind of see where we're at. And our definition of student is fairly broad, so anywhere from undergrad through postdoc. Right, next slide. Okay, so let me do a quick introduction, and I'm glad I'm ahead of time because, like I said, our presenters are awesome, and they have a lot of things I think they would like to go over. So our first presenter today is Dr. John Horack. He's the Vice President for Research at Ohio State University, where he leads the Enterprise for Research, Innovation, and Knowledge, overseeing strategic research operations, commercialization initiatives, and collaborative partnerships across the university. He's a 30-year veteran of the space flight industry, a globally recognized leader in space-based research, flight hardware development, program management, and space policy in the academic, government, and private sectors. His appointment aligns with Ohio State's ambitious Education for Citizenship 2035 strategic plan, which aims to grow the university's research enterprise to $2 billion by 2035. So if anybody has any pocket change out there they'd like to help Dr. Horack out with, I'm sure he'd be happy to take it. From 2009 to 2012, Dr. Horack served as the Vice President of Research for the University of Alabama in Huntsville, where he had fiscal oversight for the university's research enterprise, including 14 research centers and laboratories. Dr. Horack, I will turn it over to you.
General Bartman, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, and we can just go ahead and roll the slides if you want, Becky. That's great. This is a really important program, not just for the state of Ohio, but OFRN is important for the nation, because it is a mechanism through which we unleash this first link in the value chain of prosperity, which is research. And so maybe up front a little bit of motherhood and apple pie on space. Next slide. Two people that you're probably familiar with, on the left, maybe less so. He existed before photography, and on the right, maybe that's one of the first sort of, I don't know, selfies of joy by Einstein. But Kepler on the left and Einstein on the right. Okay, and many times we learn about these folks almost like they're historical figures, and that somehow way back in the day they did some research, and it was pretty interesting that Kepler came up with some laws that, things that orbit execute paths that are conic sections, maybe a hyperbola or a parabola or ellipse or a circle, period squared is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. They sweep out equal areas in equal times. All of these things that we know, sort of like the Battle of Hastings was in 1066. And Einstein, we know, oh, yes, the father of relativity, and occasionally you'll see somebody, oh, such and such did so and so that proved Einstein was right, or maybe Einstein was proven wrong. But, we ask the question, what good is any of their sort of abstract historical brain work that was done to any of us? And I think the next slide makes it pretty apparent that, what might have been an esoteric realm of research several hundred years ago, you can go ahead and forward the slide, Becky, today is an integral part of our life. You think about how many times you've used space today. Maybe we're using it right now. Maybe you bought something with a credit card. You stopped at Starbucks on your way to work and used the credit card. And the timing signal that prevents fraud for people using the same credit card in two geographically distinct places comes from the satellite. Hopefully you check the weather, right? That's a space informed product. Geolocation. I mean, we just can't imagine life without it. So Kepler's laws govern how these satellites move. And in fact, we are all consumers of general relativity, because in the GPS signal, there are several corrections that have to be made. One prediction of general relativity is that a clock ticks at different inherent rates depending on where it is in a gravitational well and how fast it's going. And it turns out that, GPS is all tied to knowing what time it is. When your clock ticks on a satellite, you have to correct for it. So what was maybe when I was a boy, space has not lost to me anyway. It's excitement and its sense of wonder and inspiration, but it's also become kind of a utility in the sense that I don't know that we can imagine life without it. So next slide. So if I can commend to you an article from Harvard Business Review. It's now a couple years old, but it's your company needs a space strategy now. I think it's interesting. It doesn't say you need to become a space company, but you do need a space strategy. So, if I'm operating a family convenience store on the corner, selling gas and frozen pizza and orange soda and Gatorade and whatever else, I kind of need a space strategy for the reasons I talked about. People are using GPS to find me. I need the satellite timing network so the gas pumps work. All of these things that are essential to our way of life are important. And so next slide. So as I said, all of this that we have today starts with research. Whether it's striped toothpaste or the rubber in the soles of your shoes, or what kind of cosmetics you might wear, your significant other might wear. I don't wear too many cosmetics. Sorry, I should talk about what I know. All of these are sort of generated from research, and the research that we do today in Ohio defines the world of tomorrow. So next slide. Everybody wants a vibrant research product, right? We want a rip-roaring bonfire. And this is not this picture I generated I was playing with Microsoft Copilot. The way not to get a vigorous research project is to take a 12-inch log and try to light it, with a Bic lighter or with a match. We were all perhaps trained at some point in how to light a fire. And the next slide is a little bit more appropriate in terms of how we want to go. And this is the role that OFRN plays, right? The way to build a rip-roaring fire and get some heat and some light and Gemütlichkeit, which is a German rhyme, is to start with the small idea, add the right amount of air, the right amount of fuel over time, and begin to fortify that, attracting other people with their resources, their fuel, their air, to combine with the fire to build something that's going. And for me, in my experience, I've been in the state of Ohio now since 2016, 10 years. OFRN is just an excellent way to fortify your nascent research and also make sure that the heat and light that comes out of your research actually goes into requirements and needs that are held here in the state of Ohio on behalf of the United States and the federal government. So General Bartman, on the next slide, General Bartman covered some of these. I'll just put them in there as well. Becky, if you could forward that. Yeah, so we put $72 million from the state in, that's the top line, which has resulted in over $400 million in follow-on funding awarded. So you can see in numbers and in 6 bullet points here, the quantitative expression of the previous little cartoon about how lighting the small fire and adding the right amount really generates some serious economic activity, 16 new companies, almost 400 jobs, and partnering among the 5 federal requirement holding partners here in the state. So next slide, please. So I'll talk a little bit about space research at Ohio State. Today is Space Day on the channel here, and I'm at Ohio State. And so what I want to share is that space research at Ohio State, we're encouraging you to come and partner with us. We want to partner with you It's a pillar of our existing and future portfolio that is only growing. And in this, OFRN continues to play a major role. And so one example that I'll talk about today is our work in Starlab and the future of low Earth orbit research and also tied to the Vista Space Park. So next slide. If you haven't had a chance to go outside in the backyard, maybe tonight's a good night. I don't know. I'll have to check the overflight schedule. But go see the space station fly over your house. It is unbelievable. Tonight, the brightest thing in the sky is probably Jupiter. It'll be the fixed object that's directly above you around 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, super bright. The space station is as bright as Jupiter. It just happens to move across the sky like it's on this electroglide transmission. And you look up there and you think, wow, since November 1st of 2000, somebody has been up there 24/7, 365, at least one American. So for now 26 years, we've had continuous American presence in low Earth orbit aboard the ISS. It took 42 flights to assemble it. It took a decade to put it together before we could ever begin to start using it. And it's coming to the end of its life. The contract has been signed to deorbit the ISS in 2030. There's some conversations in Congress right now about maybe extending it, but it won't be extended very long. And we're moving beyond this government-owned, government-designed, government-operated space station and infrastructure. Same thing with shuttle, transitioning to Dragon and commercial launches. We're going to do this with the space station. So back in December of 2021, NASA awarded some tenders. Basically, this is money to stimulate the growth of privately owned, commercially operated space stations in low Earth orbit. I had the privilege of helping write one of the proposals to NASA for a concept, next slide, Becky, called Starlab. And a picture of Starlab is here. A very different space station than what we saw in the previous slide with the ISS. This station, instead of being ready to go after 42 launches, will be ready after one launch. It will deploy in a single launch aboard Starship. That cylinder that you see sort of on the right-hand side of the station is 8 meters in diameter and about 8 meters high. So you can think of it as 3 hockey pucks sort of stacked up on top of each other with an attic and other research capability that will equal the ISS in terms of research capability. We'll hold 4 astronauts 24/7, 365 with a launch scheduled in Q2 of 2029. So the idea is to have not to butt end the end of the ISS and the beginning of Starlab, but to have a little overlap there so that we continue and not only the continuous human presence of Americans in orbit for strategic and other reasons, but also to continue the vibrant research that is going on in space, including research that cannot be done on the ground at any price. You'll see that the Starlab is a global joint venture. It's led by Voyager Technologies here in the United States. Voyager has a presence in Cleveland, having purchased Zinn Technologies, also NanoRacks and other companies that they have acquired to put Voyager together. We're partnered with Airbus GmbH out of Germany. Those are colleagues both in Friedrichshafen as well as in Bremen. Mitsubishi Corporation from Japan. MDA from Canada. So what you see here in the corporate instantiation are the international partners on ISS, but in a commercial and business context. You'll notice Hilton Hotels is a strategic partner, helping provide design and input to the astronaut accommodations. And then you see Ohio State University as the lead university in the Starlab partnership. As a professor at Ohio State, I thought it would be career limiting if I had written in the University of Michigan. So I went ahead and put Ohio State in there, and I hope that was okay. So next slide. For those of you that are less familiar perhaps with research in low Earth orbit, everything changes when you go to space. And I don't know if this little video in the main image will work. Maybe we click on it and see if it works. It's a very interesting visual way, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. I'll just keep going. To illustrate, go take a look. You can go type in YouTube, like type in spinning T handle. It's just a T handle. So it looks like the letter T, okay? And it's being rotated around its long axis. And it's just a really good visual to see this thing flip back and forth, flip back and forth. If you studied mechanics, you know that if you spin something around the middle moment of inertia, it's inherently unstable, and it will dancing, there you go, dancing T-handle in 0G. It's pretty amazing. It's a great illustration of sort of, wow, stuff is really different when you go to space, and that's true. Convection, hydrostatic pressure goes away. Diffusion drives most things because there is no convection due, let's say, to differences in density and buoyancy. Capillary action and surface tension drive all kinds of fluid flows. There's a radiation environment that you just won't and can't replicate on the ground. The effects of atomic oxygen and other things on materials, you can't get a vacuum on the ground like you can get in space. The human body, it must be wonderful to look out the window, but it's a terrible thing to do to your body to go to space. Not just in terms of the biology of your body and how your immune system responds and the shedding of calcium and all of these things, but also the psychological effects of being, locked in a can, so to speak, with 5 or 6 other people, and you can't go outside and you can't take a walk, and the psychological impacts of these environments. So there's just an amazing amount of things that can be done in space that is a unique laboratory to fortify research and address all kinds of key questions. So the next slide, I'm going to encourage you to go take a look at, for example, the ISS National Lab website that talks about many, many, many research outcomes, peer-reviewed research outcomes, life-changing in many cases, along the lines of what I shared with Kepler and Einstein. These are things that you probably can't find at Target or Walmart today. But in the future, these things will drive what it means to be alive and live and work and play and raise a family on Earth. One example I'll just highlight on the next slide is a cancer drug that you may have heard of. It's called Keytruda. Merck Pharmaceuticals is the company that makes Keytruda. And what you'll see on the next slide are 2 pictures. You can go ahead and forward that, Becky, if that's possible. On the left, you see the crystallization of this pembrolizumab, which is the active ingredient or the main actor in this drug. And I'm from St. Louis. We call that a dog's breakfast of sizes, morphologies, shapes. And at one point in time, this was the best that could be done for the crystallization of this protein. And it's one of the reasons that it was so very difficult and costly to provide as a therapy, because one, it had to be given under doctor supervision to make sure the dosing was correct. The drug had to be kept extremely cold. It could be only delivered in the context of a comprehensive cancer center. So, if my mom fortunately doesn't have cancer, but I can imagine if she did, she'd have to find a way to get in the car, maybe go an hour to the cancer center, right? I mean, it just makes the delivery very difficult. They flew it in space. And the crystallization that you see is on the right-hand side. And not only is it more uniform, the average particle size is smaller. The sort of the peakedness of the distribution is very narrow. They're very, very uniform. And this has changed the opportunity for drug delivery options in terms of, well, maybe you can get a shot from a nurse who can come to your house as opposed to you having to go to the cancer center. The safety of the drug, because it can be dosed much more regularly, the adherence to the regimen and the quality of life for patients and caregivers. The Nature paper is there. And importantly, economically for Merck, this enabled them to renew their patent for another 17 years. So just one window into kind of how this laboratory and this research opportunity in space can lead to transformational outcomes. Now, on the next slide, I think it's important also to stress that we're not making Keytruda in space, right? There are sort of 2 ways in which we can create unique and compelling value. One is we could go and make unique things, right, and bring them back down. That's a little bit challenging, but we can also go to space and learn and create new knowledge and new information that we ship down. I'm a big fan of data. It's a zero mass payload. And by going to this environment, we can learn all kinds of new things and new knowledge that we can translate into the ecosystem. So as you think about what's going on in space and as you think about the requirements, I'm going to encourage you to think about the information, not necessarily molecules and atoms going up and coming back down. So next slide. So in addition to the space station, there you go. So yeah, so big yellow circle. In addition to the space station, we have a second role at Ohio State in the future of low Earth orbit research. I mentioned the proposal that was written to NASA to acquire the 160 something million dollars in seed funding. In that proposal, it was written in that there would always be a complementary ground research park. And the way I described this to my mom is, if you go see a Broadway play, let's say it was Phantom of the Opera at the Majestic, you pay your ticket, you go in, the lighting is amazing, the sets are awesome, the singing is incredible, the acting is wildly amazing, and the costumes are gorgeous. Everything is just magic, right? And that's kind of what you want to have when you get to space. You want the perfect performance of your experiments. But when you go to the Broadway theater, what you don't see is where did they build the set? Where did they learn their lines? Where did they do their rehearsals? Who printed the playbills? Who sold the tickets? Who made the costumes? This is all the work that needs to go on the ground to prepare for space flight and also to extract the value of the research. So the proposal was silent on where it would be. And so Ohio had to gear up a second competitive proposal that was a response to an RFP that was issued by Voyager. Ohio State University, Jobs Ohio, One Columbus, the governor's office, the legislature. We competed against all the known suspects of Huntsville and Kennedy Space Center area in Houston and Colorado, and we won. And so we are building the first space-focused research park here with complementary assets, as it says, infrastructure in space and on the ground, where collaborators of all stripes, universities, government, and private sector, will come and do those kinds of things that are analogous to what I described about Phantom of the Opera, to get ready to fly, to ring out experiments on the ground, to do control experiments so that when you get a result in space and a result on the ground from the same experiment, you know your results are due to space, and to cover the entire spectrum of low Earth orbit research, development, and commercialization, new companies, new products, new services, and to directly leverage the assets, people, research of Ohio State, our laboratory infrastructure, and those kinds of things to fortify space research. So next slide, please. So the Vista is kind of a ladder with apologies to Led Zeppelin. It's a stairway to heaven. As I said, if you go outside in your backyard and you look at the space station fly over, not only is it beautiful, but you also realize how, in many ways, in many dimensions, how far away it is and how hard it is to get there. And so what we're trying to do here with Vista is to collect and build a base of university and other assets, people, infrastructure, access to capital, implementation partners, testing, development, and laboratories that helps us, I'll say, itsy bitsy spider our way up and down to low Earth orbit research and generate some of the outcomes that you see on the left-hand side. Among the outcomes I'm most excited about, especially for our young people, is the ability to build and start new companies. When a student of mine gets out of bed, I hope they pour themselves a glass of milk, call or hug their mom, and start a company. They need to do that sort of every day when they get out of bed, and brushing your teeth, I guess, is in there too. So next slide. So we didn't have a purpose-built facility ready. So we are working out of the Food, Ag, and Biological Engineering department. We have a 7,000 square foot garage. All startups in the United States apparently start in a garage. This one is no exception. With a list of what is now more than 24 partner companies. Some of them you see there, including 3 that are on that list that are actually startups coming out of Ohio State. So this is where I segue back to OFRN, because the picture you see in the upper left there is an OFRN project. This is an opportunity that was catalyzed through OFRN to demonstrate the ability to do laser welding in zero-G and in vacuum. And you say, John, that's not in space. I'm like, right, it's not yet in space. It's on an airplane. But again, along the lines of this, stairway to heaven and getting to the Majestic Theater on Broadway with Phantom of the Opera, there are these things you need to do in the middle, this ability to light the fire and then add some sticks and finally get to space. And so what you see there, next slide, we had this idea, can we laser weld in space? It would be an amazingly useful repair and fabrication tool if we had this capability. Can you do it? Don't know. That's why we do research, try to find out, right? And so Ohio State put together a capstone with some students. And then PI was Antonio Ramirez, partnering with and in response to requirements at NASA Glenn and AFRL and elsewhere for fabrication repair techniques that might work in orbit, partnering with Lincoln Electric, NanoRacks, which is a Voyager company. We're able to generate a $1.2 million funded proposal for zero-G flight with corporate and federal partnering. On that previous picture, you saw Louise Strutzenberg. She's a NASA employee, so she was on the flight. AFRL folks were on the flight, and Ohio State students were on the flight as well, one of whom is now working at SpaceX as a welder. We flew twice, once in August 2024 and once in May of 2025 to produce the first ever welds, more than 100 samples in zero-G and vacuum. Analyses and papers are being generated. And again, this idea that OFRN was the mechanism that helped us move this experiment and this idea forward in technology and in readiness to go forward. So next slide. This video may or may not play, but it's a report that's out there. You click it and see if it works. If not, that's fine. You can find it on YouTube. This is a picture of Eugene Choi. Eugene is the master's student who just recently graduated and went on to work at SpaceX. So the good news is that we are developing amazing talent here at Ohio State and in the state of Ohio in partnership with AFRL, NASA, and OFRN to generate human beings who will build the future of spaceflight. So next slide. Eventually, the Vista Park will go in at the north side of the Ohio State University Airport. If you've ever been in Columbus, you may know where this is. The road that goes left to right at the top is 161, and it's kind of between Dublin and 315 there. We have 80 acres of land, which are adjacent to the airport but sit outside the FAA boundary. Voyager has leased 10 acres for 60 years with 2 10-year options. So part of my job today is invite you to the 80th anniversary of the lease signing. You're all welcome. However you can get there, whether you'll be looking up or down or among friends, that'll be great. We should expect news this spring about the selection of the architect for the first building. Some groundbreaking. You'll see that Elford and Colliers here in Ohio have been selected as the developers by Voyager. And this private site is up and running. We will not sell the land. Ohio State will not sell the land. We will lease the land for privately owned buildings, research labs, facilities, and other activities, just as we do on the south side of the airport for our corporate tenants. Next slide. So I'm getting down to the end here. I understand 9:35 is my cutoff. So we're partnering globally with, I was at the Switzerland Innovation Park in Zurich a week and a half ago with the Shonan Eye Park where I was in July to make this a global ecosystem for research in space. So we're not trying to build the best space research park, let's say, between the Ohio River and Lake Erie. Ohio is a global player and a global leader in the future of spaceflight research. So what I can encourage you to do, next slide, is first, thank you for being here. It's important that you participate in these kinds of days to learn more. Use this to connect and network with university folks, government people, private sector colleagues in the state, including here at Ohio State. I've reached out to some of you on LinkedIn already with whom I wasn't connected. And use that to learn and understand the nature and the scope of the kind of federal requirements that are held at organizations in Ohio. NASA Glenn and General Bartman had a list of National Air and Space Intelligence Center, AFRL, and so forth. Learn what they do and learn what their requirements are. What are their hard challenges in space-related or other areas? And then work with your colleagues to build or join a collaborative team that is responsive to the needs of the requirement holders. I can't tell you how important it is to write a proposal that is responsive to the RFP. And so do that. And if you're not successful at first, give it another shot. Try again. We're very blessed to have this program in Ohio. The way we grow it is to use it and demonstrate its ROI to the taxpayer and to the citizens of Ohio and the world. And with that, I'll encourage my get off the stage slide and stop 1 minute before my allotted time. Thanks for your time this time. Till next time, so long.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Horack. We appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedule today to be able to go through this presentation. So, and again, for anybody that's on, feel free to ask questions in the chat. And if Dr. Horack can hang around for a little bit, that's fantastic. Otherwise, we will reach out to him and get answers to your questions as they come up here later on. So next slide, Becky, and we'll go ahead and move on. So our next presenter is Jeremiah McNatt. He's the principal technologist for power and energy storage for the NASA Space Technology Mission Directorate, residing in NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. In this role, he serves as the subject matter expert for power generation, storage, management, and distribution, and works to define technology gaps and guide investments to meet future NASA mission needs. So, Jeremiah, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right, Becky, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to present today. Today, I'm going to be talking about lunar surface power. It kind of needs the big picture of NASA's Moon to Mars objectives, some of the challenges that we see for the moon, and then technologies that were the technology approach that the Space Technology Mission Directorate is taking to meet some of those needs and challenges. We can go to the next slide. So the big picture, I want to point you all to the Moon to Mars architecture. So that's the thing you see in the top left corner. There's also a QR code there that will direct you to it. But if you search NASA Moon to Mars architecture, it will take you to this document. It's something that NASA puts out and updates regularly that gives you the really big picture of what we want to do to go from Earth, to take the technology that we've learned from low Earth orbit, we've learned on the space station, and then apply it to the moon with an eventual goal of having humans to Mars, and then being able to use all of that knowledge to push us even farther out to future destinations, and to be able to help our science missions to explore even farther. So it starts with, human presence on the moon, practicing as a demo for Mars, and then, like I said, that human presence to Mars. So how will we do that? We can go to the next slide. We've split this up into multiple architecture segments. The first one is the one that you probably are all the most familiar with right now. This is the human lunar return. This is what you've been hearing in the news all about Artemis. These are the initial capabilities and systems and operations necessary to get humans back on the moon. So Artemis 2, that is about to launch, hopefully early in March, is going to be to take astronauts back to orbit the moon. And then Artemis 3 is going to be the next mission to have humans back on the lunar surface. So those early stages, those early steps is to have the initial utilization of the moon, to start to have us understand how to really set up having humans back there. The next stage is the foundational exploration. These are the expansion of those capabilities and operations to really understand how we can make use of having us there, to make use of having an orbital platform around the moon, the lunar gateway, the station that we're going to have orbiting the moon, and conduct all that research that we can start to understand how we can have those Mars forward research applications. The experiments that we can do on technology to say it's applicable on the moon, and can we now understand how we can use it on Mars when we want to get there. Eventually, we want to get to the point of sustained lunar evolution, where NASA is not necessarily the one leading this work anymore, and we can turn this over to industry, more maybe academia-led, industry-led efforts, where NASA is just one of the organizations that are taking advantage of the sort of regional and global utilization that is happening on the moon. As was discussed previously about research happening on space station, we hope to see that similar type of research happening on the moon, taking advantage of the lower gravity of the space environment to do a variety of different type of medical and other research that could only be done in that unique environment. Also, maybe able to do things like in situ resource utilization, to use the regolith to extract water from the ice to produce commodities that are uniquely available there in the lunar surface. And all of this with the eventual goal to get humans over to Mars. We can go to the next slide. So another document that is kind of partnering with the Moon to Mars architecture is our strategy and objectives development document. So if you search NASA strategy and objectives document, that will pull you to the document you see kind of up there in the top left corner. And that splits the overall objectives down into multiple infrastructure or multiple smaller objectives based on science, transportation, habitation, infrastructure, and operations. For power, it falls under infrastructure. And being that my background is power, that's what my area is. Kind of happy to say that, it's number one, it's the most important one. At least I like to think it's the most important one. And you can see there the main or the number one objective for infrastructure is to develop an incremental lunar power generation and distribution center system that's evolvable to support continuous robotic and human operations, and is capable of scaling to global power utilization and industrial power levels. So we don't just want to drop one power system and walk away. We want to have a power network that has multiple power generation sites and ways to distribute that power to multiple assets, to many different users, interoperable, that makes it easy to connect and to access. So power is easily available to anyone that needs it. But along those lines, you also need to have all these other infrastructure capabilities to make that happen. You have to have precise landing. You can't come down and land another lander super close to your power system that could damage other assets. You need to have mobility. You have to be able to get things around where you need to go, communication, ISRU, navigation, environmental monitoring, and so on. You can go to the next. So that's all a good feel of what our needs are, how we're going to kind of get there. But the moon also presents some serious challenges that we have to consider. My background is photovoltaics. I did that for about 20 years at NASA, and illumination is, one of the favorite things. I am very excited for illumination. I love having sunlight. It makes photovoltaics work. It's great in space. On the lunar surface, though, it has its challenges. So the moon, it rotates on around a 28 Earth day cycle. If you are on the equator, it gives you about 14 days of illumination and then about 14 days of darkness. So if you have a photovoltaic system sitting on the horizon or sitting on the equator, you're going to get power for about 14 Earth days, maybe 340 hours, but then you go through a period of darkness around that same amount of time. So you have to have an energy storage system that can last that long. It's consistent, you can plan for it, but having to overcome that long energy storage period is very difficult. Now on the poles, it's a different case. The moon is only tilted about 1 degree on its axis. So that means that the sun on the poles is very low on the horizon. The sun comes in at a very sharp angle. If you make your solar array, instead of laying flat like we typically see here on Earth, or maybe tilted at an angle, you can then have it standing straight up and down. Sun will come in at a high angle, and then you can rotate your solar array 360, and it can track the sun that way. If you find the right location at certain elevations, and the topography on the horizon is okay, and it's not being blocked by topography, you can get areas with high illumination that maybe only have up to maybe a 3-day period of continuous darkness. So that reduces the amount of energy storage that you need. So there are areas on the poles that are more amenable to photovoltaics due to better illumination conditions. But illumination is still always a challenge that we have to overcome. When we start to think of Mars, Mars also has its benefits and challenges for illumination. If you go back to some of the early Mars rovers, they were photovoltaic based, and they were only designed to last for very short mission periods, and they've lasted, I think, 90 days, and instead they lasted for 15 years. So photovoltaics have been proven to work on Mars. But as you see here, these two pictures of Mars, one is during a clear day, that's the left, and on the right-hand side is during a global dust storm. These global dust storms can last for months, and they can decrease the illumination to the surface by as much as 95%. So if you're relying on a photovoltaic system, it can block 95% of the light hitting your system, And that's just not something that you can count on for a critical system. So things that you have to think about when you're designing your power system for these types of missions. So go to the next slide. So illumination also has a key impact on thermal conditions. If you're on the equator during the day, because of that constant illumination, you can have a temperature increase up to about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. But during the night, because there is no sunlight, you can have temperature drop down to about minus 275 degrees Fahrenheit. On the poles, because of that super low sun angle and because of deep craters, there are areas on the poles, that's what you see here in this animation, areas that are called permanently shadowed regions where sunlight has never hit into. So these can reach temperatures of like minus 400 degrees Fahrenheit. These are very interesting from a scientific perspective because they haven't been exposed to sunlight, but they've also are areas that some of them have frozen water inside of them. They have ice inside of them. So they're areas that we're very interested in going and exploring to be able to extract that ice and use it for other things. That proves makes for very challenging mission mission challenge, because we then will need to have maybe on the crater rim our power supply, our astronauts will be set up there, but then we'll have to go into that crater to be able to extract the resources. So having that very vast temperature difference in between very low temperature down in the crater, higher temperature where it's being illuminated, and we have to figure out how to overcome that temperature difference as just one of the many challenges of a mission like that. We go to the next. So how is the Space Technology Mission Directorate? What do we do? How do we address some of these technology challenges? So Space Technology Mission Directorate, our overall goal is to develop technologies and testing capabilities that support Artemis and the Moon to Mars architecture, but also supporting the technology needs of the other mission directorates. Primary one is the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate, that's Artemis and Moon to Mars, but also mission directorates like our science mission directorate. So all of the science missions, all of their technology needs. We're also the civilian tech base for space. So the industry, academia, we want to also try to address your technology needs as well. And our portfolio, I'm just talking about power today, but we span a wide range of technology areas and disciplines. And I'll show a little bit about that in a slide or two later. And go to the next. This is just a quick overview sort of what it means, tech base for civil space. So we want to advance US space technology innovation and competitiveness on the global context, encourage technology development for economic growth through some of our different programs like SBIR, and inspire and develop, a US aerospace technology community through some of our programs like our space technology research grants with universities, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So we can go to the next. This shows a little bit of our technology portfolio. You can see the areas that it spans from space transportation. This is all in space, moving things through space. Surface, space to surface operations. This is entry, landing, and descent. Surface infrastructure and exploration. This is where power is housed. This is also robotics, assembly, excavation, construction. In-space infrastructure and discovery includes things like satellite servicing and assembly, in-space operations, and then foundational capabilities are maybe the lower TRL technologies that help support everything else, like materials, communications, robotics. But really, it spans the whole technology readiness level from the very early stage innovations up through some flight demonstrations. Go to the next. Specifically looking at power technology development in the areas of surface power, what STMD is looking at, kind of break it down into 4 different areas. Power generation, things like photovoltaic arrays, primary fuel cells, nuclear and radioisotope power systems, power management, things like power electronics, power distribution, cabling, connectors, specifically like dust-tolerant connectors. For the moon, lunar dust is a problem. The Apollo missions, that was one of their biggest challenges that you heard from astronauts. They said dust was one of their primary concerns. Power electronics, proximity charging, power beaming, and then energy storage, regenerative fuel cells and batteries. So these are all technologies that will provide the capability for continuous power throughout the day, but also then night operations on the lunar surface. And these scale as well. So we're not just scaling technology readiness level, but because we have to address mission cases for a variety of different customers in a way, we also have to have technologies that can scale as well. So everything from power tools that an astronaut might be using to the EVA, powering the EVA suits, to rovers that they'll be driving around in, astronaut vehicle systems, independent small craft, the CLPS landers, to powering habitats and to powering ISRU plants that are taking regolith and converting it into raw materials. Go to the next. So I mentioned earlier about some of the ways that we look to partner with universities and industry. We call our innovation pipeline, and some of these things I think through the Ohio Federated Network, you guys probably know of. Just want to hit on a couple of things here. These are some of the partner NASA public-private partnership programs that we use to improve or to increase technology development. One of the ones that I'm kind of most excited about is NIAC, the NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts. That's a call that is open to anybody, anything from an individual, as they say, an individual in their garage, to academia, to industry, to people at NASA. If you have an idea that is very new, unique, pushes the edge of science, but it still has a chance can be done, and supports some mission that could happen in the future, it's something that you can apply for. To our space technology research grants, which is a broad span within that, from our graduate student fellowships to early career fellowships, the Small Business Innovative Research and Small Business Tech Transfer Program, Flight Opportunities, which gives you an opportunity to put your technology on a orbital platform or maybe a high altitude platform. And then things like the announcement of collaborative opportunity and tipping point, which is on the higher end of the TRL, which takes technology that is maybe just needs a little bit more testing to get it to the point that it's kind of ready for a mission. So these are all just different programs that we have that allow us to work with universities and industry. These calls come out different times throughout the year, and I've been able to support all these different ones through different reviews. And it's great to see the results that we've been able to get out of all these different programs. So if you have any questions on any of these, I would love to take questions about these programs and discuss these more later. And go to the next. So I thought this will be really good to include here in the package so you all have this. This is a kind of infographic about power capability facilities and distribution for NASA kind of throughout the agency. So what you see here are different labs that are for different breakdowns between power generation, power management, distribution, energy storage, and then at kind of which center they're at. And you can see here, it's not just all at NASA Glenn. We do have a lot at NASA Glenn. We are the primary center for power for the agency, and we have expertise in some nuclear power systems, photovoltaics, radioisotope power systems. I think actually down the list, we have something of everything there. But also wanted to highlight something of like Marshall Space Flight Center. They have a very excellent environmental effects facilities. So we often go there to do some testing, and JPL and Johnson for some of their expertise. So this will be very useful if you're looking for some of those partnerships. We can help you get to the right people. So it's really useful there. And go to the next slide, and I'll be quick on that one because I think I'm getting close on time. Lastly, prioritizing technology investments. So the Space Technology Mission Directorate, a couple of years ago, we went to the community and we said, hey, we have our investments, we have our investment portfolio, and we have a list of shortfalls, technology shortfalls that we want to use as we go and prioritize our investments. So these are areas that we think need further exploration, need further development, and areas of exploration, science, and mission needs. We asked the community to go in, look at that list. I think it was 187 different shortfalls, and help us prioritize them. The community was great, gave us a great response, great feedback. In terms of power, there were 8 different shortfalls, and I think power is kind of important, so they ranked mostly pretty high. This list now only has 32 shortfalls. It's written a bit differently, and we're asking the community to go back and look at that list again, see how that compares to what your needs are, and provide your feedback. If you have a chance, I'd like you to look at spacetechpriorities.org or scan this QR code. You have until February 20th to provide your feedback, and this will help us see how we can prioritize our investments to meet the community's needs. So this is really important. The last time we did this was in 2024. We're doing this now. So hopefully we'll be able to get all of your input. And I think that is my last slide.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeremiah. I really appreciate that presentation, and we'll help you out by sending out that list, the space technology list, to all of our OFRN partners and companies that work with us here. So we've got a pretty extensive list that we can maybe help you out with that on. So, but thank you so much for the presentation.
Fantastic.
Really appreciate it. Yeah. Next slide, if you would, please, Becky. So as I do the introduction for Dr. Chad Waddington, he is the AFRL Autonomous Sensing and Orchestration Lead, the AFRL Liaison to NASA, and the AFRL Autonomy Community of Practice Lead. He has worked extensively with the AFRL CJ office overseeing AFRL space programs and led efforts related to the space domain awareness. So, Dr. Waddington, I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Excited to talk to the group again. Unfortunately, we have lots of headaches with getting things publicly approved for release. So my slides are out of date, and so my strategy for this is to try to generate. So I have a fire alarm going off now.
Attention. We'll be testing the fire alarm system.
Hopefully, it's just a test.
Yeah. All right. So. All right, so it is just a test, but I apologize for flashing lights and screaming sirens in the background as I try to go through this. My strategy for this talk is to try to kind of go through, hit the highlights of how we run our space enterprise, some of the things that we're doing, and then if you have questions as I'm going, you can use like the little raise your hand feature, type them in the chat. The downside, the great upside of these virtual conversations is we can get a lot of people together without having to travel. The downside is it's harder for the speaker to see when everybody's eyes are glazing over or where you're really excited. So that makes it a little bit harder to refocus on the fly. That said, let's go to the next chart. So this is our space enterprise. So probably those of you who have worked with AFRL are at all familiar with us. Tend to think space AFRL over in New Mexico, what's currently referred to as our Space Vehicles Directorate. I really wish that I could show you some slides on how we're reorganizing right now. I've been told that I'm not allowed to do that, that our commander is going to be debuting the very large AFRL reorganization that we are currently implementing right now at AFA later this month. And so nobody is supposed to steal his thunder. So I can answer a few small questions on that if you have it, but the big pieces I have to leave to him to discuss. But the thing that I want to get across with this slide is that for us, space doesn't just happen in New Mexico. That is where the directorate, currently known as Space Vehicles Directorate, lives. However, we do a lot of things elsewhere. So here in Ohio, we have our Materials and Manufacturing Directorate, and they have a lot of work with materials work for space, things that are laser hardening. And so that's both for lasing effects. They also are looking at preventing space weather effects, arcing, all kinds of things. So a lot of satellite pieces are being done there. They also are looking at some in space manufacturing, which was discussed by our Ohio State colleague. We also have here the Sensors Directorate, which is where, as of 2 weeks ago, I now sit. And so here we have work that is both space to ground sensing that is being done, but also we have work that is ground to space. And one of the things that I'm very excited about is many years ago now, the Sensors Directorate pioneered a program that was the DARC program, Deep Space Advanced Radar Concept. Apologies for the noise. Sorry, I'll just try to talk loud and see, and hopefully it's not too bad. So the Deep Space Advanced Radar Concept was a program that was designed here in Ohio, and it's a radar system that was moved to Australia, demonstrated as a operational concept. Then the Air Force, and then now the Space Force. Good. I'm glad that you're hearing me fine because it's crazy here. So the radar system was demonstrated to have really good capabilities for doing space domain awareness, and the broader Air Force stepped in and took over the operational piece of that, funded with O&M dollars, a much larger system that is now completely operational, is doing the mission. And we actually managed to get the original hardware back to Ohio, and it's being installed here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so the hardware that is being installed here will have the same hardware software baseline as the operational system that is in Australia. And so that means that one of the new things that we're going to be able to do very soon is be able to work new projects and look at new modes, new ways to do that mission right here at Wright-Pat, on the same type of system that is operational. And so whatever we're able to do here, we have a path to jump with almost no middleman straight from here out onto the operational system. So I'm very excited about that. It means that I think that we can transition a lot of our space domain awareness work more effectively that way. The Airman Systems here, they work with the NAMRU folks and some others on a number of things. Operator performance, we don't really do humans in space, though NAMRU does a little bit of that, but think more, we have operators. The Space Force mission is a little bit unique in that it is very much a 24/7 mission. It's a global mission, and so our operators have to do that job around the clock, oftentimes in dark rooms, tracking insanely large numbers of objects. For the Air Force, you may be looking at trying to keep track of a couple dozen things. For the Space Force, you might be trying to keep track of a few thousand things. And so the challenges that our operators have are definitely unique. So that's kind of an example that I like to foot stomp, that AFRL has space across all of our different directorates, but in Ohio, there's a lot more than a lot of people often think. They think New Mexico and they think California with the Rocket Lab. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think everybody here has probably heard this a dozen times. We're one AFRL, two services. I had the privilege when I was at the Pentagon of being part of the group that stood up the headquarters of the Space Force back in 2020. And one of the things that was quite hotly debated at the time was whether the Space Force should have its own service lab, or whether AFRL should be a multi-service lab. And the decision was made to have one lab that would serve both services. For those of you who aren't aware, what was done, the Air Force has S&T dollars, and so those, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but those are called $3,600, and the Space Force has S&T dollars, and those are called $3,620, and AFRL gets both of those. However, there are a lot more 3,600 Air Force dollars to go around than there are Space Force dollars. And so one of the very big positives that we have being one lab, two services is that we are able, with the limited amount of space money that exists, to leverage a lot of the Air Force side investment in facilities, personnel, infrastructure, all of those types of things to be able to accelerate our space work a lot more. We can also do some mixed things where we'll use 3620 money for a certain part of a program, but maybe we'll use $3,600 to do to fund ground station work or receiver work or things like that, so that we can get things in orbit, but actually make them useful on the ground. Whereas if we were split, it would be a lot harder to make those space dollars go as far as they do. Next slide. I took the pictures off here, but I neglected, I realized after I sent these that I didn't delete the names. So we have a technology executive officer for space, and that is not Major General Scott Kane, that is Brigadier General Jason Bartolome. And we have a deputy TEO for space, which was until very recently Dr. Andrew Williams. He has now become the Space Vehicles Directorate director, and we have a colonel that is stepping into that DTEO role. The punchline for this slide, though, is that the Air Force Research Lab commander is also dual-hatted as the technology executive officer who oversees the S&T expenditure for the entire Department of the Air Force. And so that includes the dollars that come into AFRL, but that also includes all the S&T dollars that don't come into AFRL, that go elsewhere. And the decision was made, if we're going to have one lab, then we need to have somebody who is overseeing the space side of the house quite intently. And that's why the deputy TEO role was created. And so the Air Force Research Lab has somebody who is the overall point of contact for the entire Department of the Air Force for all of our S&T expenditures for those space dollars. Next slide. I think the takeaway for this group is really on this next slide. And so underneath the that deputy TEO, there are 6 people who are our space mission area leads, and they're listed here. And so the takeaway for those on the call, these people are really your best front door in many cases. If you are trying to get a conversation going with AFRL in one of these 6 areas, these are your point of contacts. They may not have an answer for you, but the idea is that they are supposed to be broadly aware of what is going on in industry, in acquisitions, in operations, and then also broadly aware of what is going on in the lab so that they can be a big part of that interface. And so they may not have a good answer for you initially, but the idea is that they can facilitate getting the right conversation started. If we go to the next slide, I think that is where, so we can skip this one because this, I think, basically just kind of reiterates the next one. And so this is where the CUI version is a lot more useful, because the CUI version here has everybody's phone number and email and all of that good stuff so that you can contact these people directly. Our PA version has all of that stripped out, unfortunately, and it just gives you the org box. But I can give you the org box. And so I wish I could give you the individual information, But this AFRL Deputy TEO email, that goes to the office, and so Sage, gosh, fire alarm. If you email that box, I believe will do a very good job of trying to get you connected to the right people, um, and so that is going to be your best point of contact coming in. I do want to just very quickly foot stomp something that I think it was my Ohio State colleague that was talking about how to get your proposals and so forth accepted. I thought he had a very good comment about really working on demonstrating the utility, the payoff, and so forth in those proposals. One of the things, and so I'll just use the little platform that I have here to this group to kind of put my perspective on it. Both outside of AFRL and even inside of AFRL, when I'm looking at different proposals, a lot of times I see proposals that have very good technical merit. They have, it's very interesting problems, but they're often very light on why the Air Force or the Space Force, in my case, would really be interested in the outputs of this work, this research, this development activity, whatever it is. And the proposals that typically catch my eye a lot more are the ones that don't start with the challenging technical problem, but really start much more with the operational challenge. Like, this is the problem that the operators are facing. This is why it's a problem. Our operators are spending 6 hours a day doing this manual data entry task or something like that. And here's how I can solve that problem. And here's what the technical challenges are. And so I just thought that was a good comment that he had made, and I wanted to foot stomp that I think as you're looking to engage with AFRL, that's something that we look for in proposals, and that's also potentially something that we can help with on our side as you're looking at proposals for either OFRN dollars or AFRL dollars or other Department of the Air Force dollars. I think that is something that we can also help and provide to academic and industry colleagues, that a warfighter perspective, what are the challenges that we're experiencing, that we're seeing, that the department would really like to spend some money to get solved. And so with that, I will stop there and leave a few minutes for questions if people have other questions or other things that they would like me to talk about.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Chad. Really appreciate taking your time today to be able to present and supporting Ohio Federal Research Network as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat session, and we'll make sure that we get you answers for those questions. I will sort of foot stomp, actually, one of the things that both Dr. Horack and Dr. Waddington mentioned about, when you do proposals, for us anyways, OFRN, it's all about making sure you're addressing the specific problem that our federal partners have listed in the solicitation. So, which we would sort of consider a tech pull type thing, right? So you're trying to solve a very specific problem that we identify in our solicitation, as opposed to saying, hey, I got this really great widget and I think you guys should buy it. That's tech push, and we don't do tech push. So it's all about, here's a problem that AFRL or NASA Glenn or NAMRD or NASIC has that we list in the solicitation, and how your solution is going to address that problem and provide an answer to them that they can then use and provide back to the warfighter in a relatively expeditious manner. So let's see, let's go ahead and we will go through our opportunity reviews. I want to give any people or everybody an opportunity to ask any questions or they have for that. Brendan Thorson, who, as I mentioned earlier, is with the Academic Partnership Engagement Experiment, or APEX, not to be confused with other apexes that might be floating around out there. So this one is part of Parallax Advanced Research, and is a partnership intermediary agreement for the United States Air Force, although they do work with all of the services. So Brendan's a great resource if you're a small business, especially non-traditional, and you're interested in trying to figure out, who to talk to in the Army or the Navy or in the Air Force or Space Force or whoever it happens to be. Our Apex partners are the ones that can really help you out with that. And I know, Brendan, Jeremiah actually posted in the chat a little bit about CyberSitter. If feel free, if you've got any late breaking information or anything about that, feel free to share that with everybody as well. So in that case, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and good morning. Excited to share some current and upcoming funding opportunities with you all. Most of these have a space focus, but I did want to keep some that are relevant to broader aerospace technologies that folks in the audience may be working on. So I did have a slide to start off by addressing the current status of the CyberSitter program. We had, I know, some comments in the chat about it. If you're not aware, at the end of the government fiscal year, funding for the CYBER program lapsed. So this basically means no new solicitations or topics are being released, and agencies currently aren't accepting proposals or reviewing or awarding proposals. So unfortunately, there's no guaranteed timeline or even assurance that the program will be reauthorized. Things do seem to change by the week, and we get pretty regular updates from the Hill. What I will say is keep an eye on it. If you are wondering what you can do to help push this through, I would say reach out to your senators, reach out to your congressmen. We're really hoping and looking forward to the program being reauthorized. And just because there aren't any active funding opportunities doesn't mean there isn't some work that you can be doing now to look ahead and start preparing for the future. So next slide, Becky. So these are some CYBER topics, all direct to phase 2, that were put out by the Space Force and SpaceWorks specifically before the funding lapse. They have indicated that these will open after reauthorization. So while there's no guarantee, you can get an idea of some of the topics we might be seeing after reauthorization. So I won't go through all these, it's a pretty long list. General tech focus areas touch autonomy technologies, space domain awareness, and in-space servicing of satellites and other assets in space. So again, you may be able to start preparing if any of these topics are relevant to you, and hopefully some of them will be released after reauthorization. Next slide, please. So one opportunity we're really excited about that's coming out from SpaceWorks and the Space Force is the Adaptive and Intelligent Space STTR Challenge, especially for any academics in the audience. This is STTR, so it requires that a small business partner with a university or research institution. And this one's really focused on space control, battle management, looking for autonomous systems that can be deployed in space. So there are some focus areas listed in this solicitation that include edge computing and algorithms, sensor payloads, and bus design. So if you have a technology that addresses one of those, and you may be interested in teaming with the university, or if you're an academic and you want to partner with industry, great opportunity to get funding for research and development, prototyping, and positioning yourself for future opportunities in space operations. Next slide. Okay, so this is a big deal. AMAC, or the AFRL Multiple Award Contract, is really a first of its kind solicitation. And this just came out, I believe, a month or so ago. This is really geared for industry that has some past performance, whether as a prime contractor or a subcontractor. It's a $10 billion multiple award contract using IDIQs. So it's a little complicated. I'll try to start from the basics. So basically, you can apply for this program, and if you are awarded, which it does not actually carry any funding, but if you're awarded, it gives you the opportunity to compete for future task orders that AFRL will issue for specific capabilities in the future. So again, you're not guaranteed funding even if you're awarded, but you must apply and be awarded to AMAC to even compete for those future task orders. And we're talking about, again, 10 billion in IDIQs over a period of, I believe, 8 years. So it's a pretty light application, especially if you're used to SBIR or similar proposals. It does require, again, self-scoring on your past performance, whether that's as a prime contractor or as a sub. But this is a really great opportunity for teaming or even subcontracting if you don't think you have enough past performance to apply. So really good opportunity for especially more mature companies. It is due February 27th, so you've got exactly 2 weeks to submit for this. Again, it's a pretty light application. If you are curious about this, want to learn more, or have questions, there are point of contacts listed that you can reach out to. I'd also encourage you to reach out to Apex, and we can see what we could do to help you if you're interested in applying. Okay, next slide. So the Defense Innovation Unit, or DIU, has put out a CSO, or Commercial Solutions opening, seeking existing autonomous solutions to de-orbit satellites. Again, they're looking for pretty mature technologies that hit things from rendezvous and proximity operations, autonomous operations, really looking for full systems here. But if you think you may have this kind of capability, would highly encourage you to look at this. It closes this Friday, the 13th. It's a great opportunity to get some funding for prototyping, maturing a capability if you think you may fit what they're looking for here. Okay, next slide. So there's a few long-term broad announcements that are focused on space research from AFRL, the Air Force, and specifically the Space Vehicles Directorate. Starting with the Space Technology Advanced Research, or STAR. It's really a broad space technology research program, rolling applications through 2030, so there's shouldn't be a sense of urgency with this one. But check it out if you think you may be a fit. The space-to-space, or S2S communications, VAA is a little more focused on satellite communications. This one's also open through 2030. I believe it also has rolling applications. It may, it requires a white paper to submit. Good opportunity for funding if you're in that area. And then lastly, we have the Space Environment, Technologies, and Science, which is focused on anything from space weather and environmental effects on systems that are in space. These have call-based submissions, so keep an eye out for announcements on that. And this one's open through 2028. And again, if you have questions about any of these, want to learn more, and there isn't contact information listed, go ahead and reach out to us and we'll see if we can help. Next slide. I think this is the last one we have. And this is non-defense NASA's ROSES, or Research Opportunities in Space and Earth Sciences. It's NASA's main research funding vehicle for science and technology research. There are a lot of open funding opportunities under this one, way too many to put on a single slide. They all have different deadlines, I believe, through May of 2026, but all supporting the various NASA and science and technology research programs that they have. So most of these are grants. Would really encourage you to look into it, especially for the academics in the audience who may be interested in funding for research. And I believe there is also funding for more advanced research and development and prototyping as well. Lots of opportunities in this one. Encourage you to check it out if you think you may be a fit. Okay, and I think that was the last one we had, Becky. So we have some different links in here to find opportunities, starting with SAM.gov. That's by far the most comprehensive and should give you insight into all of the opportunities out there from the government as a whole. Grants.gov and SBIR.gov for more specific opportunities. DSIP used by the DoD or DoW for their SBIR program. And then, of course, links to OFRN and the Apex website as well, if you're interested in learning more about our programs and how we might be able to support you. So Mark, I'll turn it over back to you.
All right. Awesome. Thanks. You can just kind of leave it on this slide for a little bit if you'd like, Becky, for folks to take a look at it here. Just a couple, again, reminders, and thanks, Brendan. Appreciate for that update. Is the slides recording of the presentation, and which includes the slides, will be posted to the OhioFRN.org website. So that's OFRN's website. Usually takes a couple of days to process it and get it up on there. But Becky, if you could maybe throw the link to that page in the chat for everybody one more time. Chad, I don't know if you're still on. There was a question from a Mike, I don't have a last name, in the chat about contacting AFRL and what's the best way to do that potentially.
Yeah, so I agree that the organizational chart definitely shows technology and applications, but we're definitely interested in the basic research also. So the Air Force Office of Scientific Research has I'm not going to give you a number because it'd be wrong, but at least 4 or 5 different portfolio managers that would be working in various aspects of space, even all the way to we have a person who is working biological applications for space using biotechnology in space for space applications, and also using space to do biological research. And so we've got quite a good span. But for the basic, what we call 6.1 low TRL level exploratory types of technologies, the Air Force Office of Scientific Research is the best place for you to reach out to for more of those basic science types of things.
Excellent. Thanks. Appreciate it. Next slide, Becky. All right. I think that's the last one there. So it has my email, Becky's email, that feel free to shoot either one of us if you have additional questions, and we'll be happy to provide the answers for you. Other than that, so thank you again to all of our 3 presenters. They did a fantastic job today, I think, on that. The next Opportunity Day, we do these quarterly, so it'll probably be, let's see, this is February, so maybe May timeframe is probably when we'll do the next one, and it'll be obviously a different topic. But all of the previous Opportunity Day presentations are on our website, and Becky will make sure that when she sends out the information to everybody that was here today for today's webinar, that it'll contain links to the presentations and our website so that you can review previous presentations if you'd like. With that, thank you so much to everybody that participated today. We truly do appreciate supporting the Ohio Federal Research Network and everything that we do, and be looking forward to making contact with hopefully some, if not all of you in the future. So everybody have a great day. It's supposed to actually warm up here in Ohio, so yay, finally out of the 20-degree temperatures for once. Other than that, thanks. We appreciate it, and everybody have a great week.